Welcome to Channel Today in History. In today's video we will talk about the day, November 22nd, 1963, assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. In the 1960 presidential election, John F. Kennedy had beaten Republican Richard Nixon by a slim margin and against all odds. In the summer of 1963, the Kennedy administration's cabinet began to plan its strategy for the upcoming elections of 1964, in which he would stand for re-election. The polls in the southern states were not favorable, and, specifically, in the state of Texas, where in the 1960 elections Kennedy had already won by very little margin, he was losing positions, so that by the end of that summer of 1963 President John F. Kennedy decided to take a trip to that state to garner votes and increase his popularity. Kennedy began a long tour of 12 states where he wanted to consolidate his candidacy. The campaign started in Florida, and from there went to Texas. Since Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson was a Texan and enjoyed great prestige among his countrymen, Kennedy thought it would be a good strategy for the Texan people to see them together and in person on the streets. What's more, for this occasion, Kennedy asked his wife Jacqueline to accompany him on the trip, which was unusual. The tour of Texas was planned for the fall. It would start on November 21st, visiting the cities of Houston and San Antonio, and on the 22nd, early on, Kennedy would travel to Fort Worth. At around 1 p.m., lunch would be held in Dallas. On November 22, 1963, while being driven in an uncovered automobile through the streets of Dallas, Kennedy was mortally wounded by several shots that proceeded from somewhere above the people clustering on both sides of the streets where the presidential party passed. Despite the dizzying rush to the hospital, the president died half an hour after the attack, without regaining consciousness. Immediately after the attack, a man was arrested, Lee Harvey Oswald, a former infantry soldier in the Navy, who in turn would also be murdered on the eve of JFK's burial by Jacob Rubenstein, Jack Ruby. Oswald was the only author to blame for the assassination, even though the exact circumstances of Kennedy's death, to this day, have never been officially clarified. Oswald worked in a library on the street from the attack. He left the library a few minutes after the murder and, after his arrest, pleaded not guilty. However, several clues incriminated him. The murder weapon that was discovered in the library belonged to him. The next day, while being transferred to prison, he was murdered by Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner, who said he wanted to avenge the president. The new president, Lyndon B. Johnson, immediately appointed an investigative commission, chaired by the head of the Supreme Court, Judge Warren. The commission worked for 10 months, and its conclusions were quite specific. Kennedy had been assassinated by Oswald, who had acted alone, because of his dementia, and not for political reasons. The Warren report contains contradictions and does not answer every question. Several witnesses are sure they heard gunshots across the street, and Jack Ruby's personality, as well as his sudden death in jail in 1967, raises the suspicion of a political conspiracy. Did you like the video? In the description you will find the blog link with the full article. Give an incentive by subscribing to the channel, liking, commenting, and sharing with your friends. Hugs. Until the next.